Now, I want you to understand, you can't save your way to wealth. But the purpose behind these 2 tips is simply to allow you to realize more money in your pocket that you can buy assets with. Americans, we can no longer afford to be economically ignorant. Let me tell you a little story. When I was coming up, for a time, when I was a child, we were on welfare. And there came a date on the calendar when my mother said, we're not going to be on welfare anymore. That date came and we weren't. And life really got hard then. But I can tell you that we, overcame it and, everything worked out. But while we were on welfare, let me tell you something. It was subsistence living. It barely kept our nose above water. Now, I'm not saying we weren't grateful for the temporary assistance, but I can tell you right now, it was nothing that was going to allow us to achieve any semblance of economic independence at all. In fact, back then, at least when we were on it, the check would roll around at first of the month, and by the 15th of the month, we were broke. And this is with my mother, who was extremely financially responsible. Okay, we had food, so that wasn't a problem. It wasn't the best food or the tastiest food. It was the big block of welfare cheese, okay, that you could basically stop a door with, or, you might be able to knock somebody out. You might catch a charge if you hit someone with that block of welfare cheese. It's heavy. And I don't know how nutritious it is, but whatever. We had it. We survived. It was all good. So the point I'm making here is now we're dressing this whole thing up, and they're calling it universal basic income. That's going to be the program that people from the middle class are placed into in order to have them be economically dependent on this government and on corporations who pay into this universal basic income scheme. Okay? Don't fall for it. Now, in order not to be trapped in that paradigm, because it is easy to get trapped in a dependency paradigm if you allow it. In order not to be trapped, we got to think outside the box here. These are very interesting times. We got the policymakers and the politicians doing what they do, which is lie. We can't trust anything that's coming out of the media, okay? But we can examine things with our gray matter up here, and we're reasonable, intelligent people. Society has done such a great job of trying to convince you that unless you came out of Harvard or Yale, that you just don't have the answers for yourself, okay? When in fact, if you look at numbers that come out monthly, like the jobs numbers, how many times have you seen it say economists were not expecting this? So they're never right, okay? But we put too much trust in these Ivy Leaguers, the politicians. Our president, as a matter of fact, has never, ever worked in the private sector. All he's done for his entire professional life is be a politician. And he's not alone, okay? There's so many politicians out there that are just like him. So, having said all that, let's get to a couple of ways that you can actually stem the tide against inflation and what's happening out there, and start to recoup some of this money that these corporations are taking out of your pocket with higher prices, and these politicians are taking out of your pocket with higher taxation, okay? Let's start to talk about how you can do some real things to avoid being on the other side of that. Now, we're going to talk about 2 specific things here in a minute that are costing Americans a lot of money. And we got to question whether or not we need to change our behavior on these things. Companies want to raise prices. Will consumers revolt? American companies are starting to test the extent of their pricing power. Faced with rising costs for materials, transportation, and workers, companies are charging more for products from metal fasteners to Oreo cookies, helping fuel inflation like the U.S. hasn't seen in more than a decade. And I think this inflationary period is not transitory. I agree with Jamie Dimon over at JP Morgan in that this is going to be a long-term prospect. And the reason for that is because we put so much money out there, okay, onto the street. And that is going to drive demand. And as demand is driven, so is inflation. What companies decide will go a long way toward answering that question, the question about whether or not this is transitory or whether it's permanent. Fastenal Company, a major distributor of industrial supplies such as nuts and bolts, and Conagra Brands, a food conglomerate, illustrate the pricing dance playing out across the biggest U.S. firms. Both companies are passing along higher costs to consumers. They have different views about what happens next. Now, hold on. Let's stop right there for a minute. I want to go over one part with you once again. Both companies are passing along higher costs to consumers. It's nothing nefarious about that. It's just the reality of economics, okay? If it costs them more to make a box of cereal, then of course you're going to pay for that in an increase in your Frosted Flakes. Now, the other part of this is taxation. Remember, the government is talking about going up on taxes. They've made no bones about this. So you're going to get hit with higher cost at the pump, at the price register, and you're also going to get hit with higher taxation. And do not believe that if you're in the middle class, you're safe. Oh, it's only for the rich. Wrong. In fact, noted economist Shay Hawkins just testified before Congress, and he told them, listen, corporations don't pay taxes. You do, okay? You being the consumer. He told them, he explained to them, look, when you go out and you, want to get on your stump speech, Mr. Politician, and you want to say things like, oh, we're going to stick it to the corporation, we're going to raise the prices, we're going to raise the taxes, rather, of corporations, that flows through to the consumer. That hurts the employees, because if consumers say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to pay these high prices, I'm going to pull back, then that, of course, is going to also lead to reductions in staff at some point, potentially, and it could also hurt the share owner as well. So who does it help? Who do these tax increases help besides some politician when he's talking to a bunch of economically ignorant people? You can't win unless you open your own business and start to take advantage of some of these tax benefits that are out there and reserved for business owners. Okay, this is interesting. We still think our products' price points have room to move north based on the quality that we offer. Chief Executive Sean Conaloy, he's Chief Executive of Conagra, the food company, told investors last week, noting that widespread increases across grocery aisles seem to leave consumers more willing to pay so far. Basically, what he just said was, hey, look, everybody's raising their prices. So if you're going to go to a grocery store and you want food, what are you going to do? Because everybody's in the same boat in terms of the manufacturers. He goes on to say, you don't generally get a customer to accept inflation-justified pricing until they're confident it's not transitory inflation. So basically what he's saying, if the consumer thinks this is transitory, in many cases they can stock up and then wait out the price increases. So I think that's true. All right, let's take a look at some ways to save some money, okay, and still do the things we need to do. Now, I want you to understand, you can't save your way to wealth, but the purpose behind these two tips is simply to allow you to realize more money in your pocket that you can buy assets with, that you can continue to invest in your business with, continue to buy stocks or real estate or what have you. Because the only way out of this is for you to become economically independent. And the only way to do that is to purchase assets. Now, you got to eat, okay? So in terms of being able to spend less on food, I noticed that only 30%, I looked this statistic up, only 30% of Americans shop at wholesale clubs. Hey guys, I'm out here at the BJ's Wholesale Club. We had talked previously about doing things to save money because we're in an environment now where inflation is rearing its ugly head big time. And so we're going to need to get creative. I read in some publication that 25% of Americans belong to a wholesale club. I'm not sure about how accurate that is. They might have been referring to just one wholesale club, but even if that number is accurate, it means that there are a lot of people that can, get these affiliations. 75% of the population, according to that figure, do not belong to these clubs. So what my suggestion is go ahead and look into it. Now, I'm at a BJ's, but Costco is another big one. And the reason I'm suggesting that, Sam's is another one, that's the Walmart one. And the thinking is that with these wholesale clubs, they charge a membership fee. The membership fee replaces markups in price. Okay, so the more you shop there, actually the less percentage of each shopping trip that membership fee becomes. So it can get pretty affordable for you, especially if you have family, to shop at one of these wholesale clubs. Now, I'm standing in the candy aisle, and you guys might wonder, how does he maintain his incredible physique standing in the candy aisle? Well, this is for other purposes. I don't eat chocolate, but give that some thought, joining a wholesale club, because this is one way that you can beat inflation. Okay, we're going to talk about some other ways you can beat inflation. I just happened to be in here and decided to make this video about this subject. So go on out, research your local wholesale club, and then what you're also going to have to do, if you don't already own one, you're going to have to buy a freezer, like a standalone freezer. And they say the chest freezers are best as opposed to the stand-up, because when you open a chest freezer, remember, cold air falls. So you're not going to, realize all your cold air falling out as you would with one of the refrigerator style freezers that opens like a door. See, you never know what you're going to learn on this channel, man. I mean, we're just fountains of information. Might be a much more affordable way for you to feed your family if you shop at one of these clubs often. Right? If you buy food for a month at one of these wholesale clubs, then it's quite possible that you are missing a lot of, incremental increases. So that's one idea. The next one has to do with cable TV. Did you know your gas and electric bill, water bill, and some people pay to have their garbage removed? Those 4 items, on average, across the country, cost less combined than your cable bill does. The cable bill has an average of $217. In fact, as customers leave, because a lot of people are cutting the cord going to streaming, and there's nothing on TV to watch, let's be serious, we don't watch the news. The news is fiction, okay? The news is garbage. So you're going to pay for CNN and CNBC and Fox? You're going to pay for that? Look, the average cable price is $217. Cable has been steadily going up, even though they're losing customers. You need to write down on a piece of paper what you like to watch. And then you need to try to recreate that with a streaming package. And I can't stress to you enough, leave the news off of that list, because you're not being informed, okay? I haven't watched the news in years. Not local. What am I watching local news for? The names change, the stories don't. I can guarantee you that the top story on the local news in this area tonight will be someone got murdered or someone attempted to murder someone. All right? So I don't need that in my life. In terms of the big boys, the networks and the cables, it's just theater, guys. You don't need to pay for that, okay? Put that money back in your pocket to purchase assets with, all right? So that's all for today. I'll talk to you soon.